Turning MPS around will be a difficult task. To reverse these trends, we need to come up with more than another instructional method or the most fashionable educational rhetoric of the day. We need leadership to formulate an agenda that strengthens MPS. Rather than playing the blame game that blames me, a state legislator, for an equalization formula that does not take into account poverty, the Milwaukee Teachers Union for the benefits that they have gained through bargaining, or the economy, the Act will squarely place that responsibility on the city's mayor. If the mayor cannot reverse the trend, then the city must change its policy or its leadership. Under the current system, the mayor does not have the legal authority to directly affect educational policies. Without a legal grant of such authority, we will not be able to institutionally concentrate the political leadership required to move MPS forward. If, as a state, we can't find a solution to help the educational condition of MPS, we will have lost our ability to enlist the taxpayers that fund a system based on the good faith belief that educational goals are being achieved at their most basic proficiency levels. Either we act now or we fail the vast majority of poor children in this state. I'm concerned that while today we're not only as poor as Detroit in education, if we do not soon lift ourselves up and change the course of learning at MPS, we will be like Detroit and even more, and have a city without economic, political, or educational solutions. When the largest city in the state cannot fashion solutions to its most difficult but basic problems, it does not speak well for all of Wisconsin. As a person who has represented the interests of MPS and advocated for children in the city of Milwaukee, I believe that this reform proposal should be adopted as law. I thank you again for allowing me to speak, and I know I've gone on for too long, and you want to hear from people other than whom you hear for at all times. Thank you.
What I would like to do now, I see the mayor standing in the aisle there. I don't like that. I would like to call up Mayor Barrett and Secretary Morgan and ask that Senator Taylor and Representative Cologne remain, and we'll allow a little time for questions after their presentation. Would that be all right, so we can get the mayor on here? Thank you. We're particularly grateful that Secretary Morgan, in his convalescence, has limped in here. We know that this is a very important issue for him, and he's been working very hard on it. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for affording me an opportunity to speak. The mayor and I talked previous to my standing here. He indicated that I should lead off, and he'll have a few words to to offer about this legislation. I'm here, I'm pleased to be here to testify on behalf of Governor Jim Doyle on an issue that is critical to so many in the state, especially our teachers, students, our children, and parents in MPS. Education remains a top priority for Governor Doyle in the state of Wisconsin. The education we provide our young people today will provide the foundation of our state and nation for decades to come. And Wisconsin's great education system, from our pre-kindergarten to our world-class universities, has always been a model for what education should look like in America. MPS, as you know, is the state's largest school district with about 10% of the state's students. What happens in this school district impacts our entire state, undoubtedly. Governor Doyle has said many times that for Wisconsin to thrive, we need a strong and growing Milwaukee. And that means we need the best Milwaukee schools possible. Over the course of 4 state budgets, Governor Doyle has shown his continued support for MPS. MPS receives about 13% of all state aid to local districts. In addition, the governor has increased SAGE funding, which is intended to decrease class sizes by $250 per pupil, for a total of $2,250 per student. And MPS receives about $32 million of SAGE payments, which is about 29% of the total amount that's transferred to SAGE throughout the state of Wisconsin. We've expanded, the governor has expanded state breakfast and lunch programs in the city, understanding how important nutrition is. We provided $10 million for special MPS math programs for improving student achievement. And I should point out that the net of that program has been $30 million for the MPS for math improvement in the system. We added a poverty factor to the school aid formula, resulting in an increase of $9.8 million in funding for MPS each year. And we approved a $13 million fund to assist the school choice to offset some of the costs associated with school choice, thereby lowering MPS, the levy that MPS has here in the city by $13 million. Now, in spite of these changes and other efforts by many, including the mayor of the city, Milwaukee Public Schools continue to face unique challenges. First and foremost, current educational outcomes in MPS are simply unacceptable. Over 82% of 10th graders in MPS do not achieve proficiency in math or reading, or did not achieve proficiency in math or reading last year. In addition, according to a report from the National Center for Education Statistics, Wisconsin Achievement Gap is, as stated by Senator Taylor and others, is the worst in the nation. 8th grade reading and 8th grade reading, and second worst in 4th grade reading. We had the second worst achievement gap in 4th and 8th grade mathematics of any state in the country. Graduation rates are improving, but they still lag behind the statewide average. Here's an interesting statistic. MPS 9th graders comprise about 8.8% of 9th graders enrolled in high school in the year 2005-06. But by the time they become seniors, MPS students comprise only about 6.7% of that class. In other words, for non-MPS districts, enrollment between 9th and 12th grade drops less than 1%, while enrollment in MPS drops about 48% in that same time period. The classrooms of Milwaukee Public Schools are filled with great students, undoubtedly. And MPS should be congratulated on the achievements of two of its high schools that were identified as great high schools by U.S. News and World Report, I think it was. So there are some good things that are going on in MPS. But the classrooms of MPS are filled with good students and good teachers. But as I stated earlier, an achievement gap between MPS and other state schools exists, and we need to do something about it. And we must be committed to improving educational outcomes for our students, and that starts with reforming MPS. MPS can be an outstanding school system, undoubtedly, but not under the current governance structure. Dramatic change is needed. Governor Doyle strongly supports the reforms outlined in Senate Bill 405. First, Senate Bill 405 creates a stable governance structure, which has been talked about before. The current governance structure does not provide that stability. There have been 7 school board presidents in the last 10 years. During this time, there have been about 287 reforms or improvement initiatives introduced in the school system. With little stability, many of these initiatives have stalled, failed, or teachers, principals, and other staff just don't take it serious. Mayoral governance will provide MPS's future superintendent with the stability and support they need to come up with an aggressive educational plan and then follow through on that plan. It supports the superintendent and frees him or her from the constant need to renegotiate support for every issue whenever there is a board turnover. Second, the bill clearly defines who is accountable for the successes or failure of MPS, so voters know who to hold responsible. The mayor would be in charge of education for the city. No more finger pointing. And then third, reforming the governance structure of MPS will move Milwaukee to a better position to compete for federal resources. This is not only true for the $4 billion in Race to the Top fund, but would likely continue to be true for future federal education dollars. President Obama has made it clear and that federal education dollars will be tied to bold reforms linked to educational outcomes. The president is making competitive dollars available to states that pursue reforms that improve student performance on standardized tests, graduation rates, and addressing the achievement gap between white and minority students. The General Counsel of the United States Department of Education was here recently. In fact, he was here just last month. He came to Wisconsin to meet with legislators and leaders from the education, business, nonprofit, philanthropic, and faith-based communities to discuss the state of education in Wisconsin and the importance of implementing education reform. And of course, U.S. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan has stated clearly that mayoral governance is essential to reform.